Hello all, welcome to Clear Technologies. As part of our advanced course, we have discussed a couple of topics so far, and in today's video we will be discussing about batch processing. We will be discussing everything about batch processing in depth in this particular series. So it will be like 2 or 3 videos based on the content or time, but we will definitely cover most of the things related to the batch processing related to the real-time projects. Okay, I hope you will be enjoying this video, and if you are visiting our channel for the first time, please subscribe to our channel and please watch previous videos of this advanced course so you will get much knowledge on this particular different important topics. Okay, so batch processing is also a very important topic in real-time projects. Okay, because in real-time projects we will be having some kind of requirements like to process large number of data, very huge data we need to process something sometimes, and we need to do some kind of ETL jobs and all to sync the data between different systems. Like that we will be having multiple requirements in some complex projects, which will be very useful if you are aware of batch processing in depth. So it will be easy for you to work on your real-time projects. Right, so let's get started. What is batch processing? What are the different things and what are the different features? How it will behave in different situations and different use cases? Everything we will be discussing. So first of all, let's see what is batch processing directly in MuleSoft documentation. I don't want to create any PPT for this because it is more practical than theoretical. Okay, so yeah, let me just this is the MuleSoft actual official documentation. Here if you can see, Mule batch processing components are designed for reliable asynchronous processing of large than memory data sets. Okay, and the components are batch job is batch step, batch aggregator and batch job, everything. This we will discuss later, but main thing you need to focus is it is designed for reliable asynchronous processing of larger than memory data sets. So that is the main purpose of batch processing. And what kind of different scenarios we will be having in general for real-time projects means these are all the some couple of common requirements. Synchronizing data sets between business applications, such as syncing contacts between NetSuite and Salesforce. This is one kind of use case. So in NetSuite, we have more number of thousands of contacts. In Salesforce, we need to sync that, like the how many number of contacts are there in the NetSuite, the thousand number of contacts. We need to create the same contacts in Salesforce, and we need to make it sync between these two systems. That is one kind of requirement. And extracting, transforming, and loading ETL information into target system, such as uploading data from a flat file to Hadoop. This is also one kind of requirement. First one is syncing between two different systems. Second one is we have a CSV flat file where we have all multiple information regarding multiple records, large number of records. Those records we are going to insert into the Hadoop. Hadoop is another system where we are going to insert. This is also one kind of another requirement. Then handling large quantities of incoming data from an API to a legacy system. This is in general REST APIs. We will be having this kind of requirements like handling large quantities of incoming data from API itself. If we are getting bulk data, then how we are processing that bulk data and sending to a legacy system like any database or any another thing we are going to insert. So these are all the common use cases. You but at this stage you may not be understand these use cases very perfectly, but let's see different examples in our entire this series, then you will be easily understanding these things, these concepts and all. So let me just give you some simple example, then we will come back here and discuss this architecture. Okay, first let's see how the batch processing scope will looks like. So to do that, let me just drag and drop a listener. I have just created a new project, nothing into it. It is a plain one. So to trigger this flow, I want to create an HTTP listener. You can trigger this batch processing by using scheduler or HTTP listener in general. Okay, then let me just and you can you need to understand that batch processing is not a message source, it is just a message processor. You cannot use batch process as a message source. I will show you that as well. So here I'm just giving batch testing. Okay, so let me just search for batch processing. Okay, it is not there. No, it is there. It is there. If it is not there, you can just add it via add module. Okay. So here the first thing would be batch job. Inside this batch job, we can use batch step and batch aggregator. Batch step we cannot use it individually. Batch aggregator also you cannot use it individually. Batch job is the scope. Inside that you can use multiple batch steps and batch aggregators. So let me drag and drop batch job individually, that you can see the difference how we can use this batch job either like message source or message processor. I just drag and drop the batch job. Let's see, it is getting some delay. Let's wait. It is not. Let me drag and drop again. Yeah. See, if I drag and drop this batch job individually, where it has placed by default, it is in the message processor section. There is no message source for it. So batch job is message processor. It is not the message source. We cannot trigger the batch job individually, but we can process the records inside that batch job in the process section. Okay, I'm just deleting this here. Got stuck somehow. Yeah. Now I'm drag and drop the batch job here in the process section. See, here you have three sections actually. This entire thing is a batch job. Inside that you will find batch step, and inside batch step you have processors and aggregator, two sections, and by end of the batch job you will have on complete as another section. So to understand it more better, we need to first understand what are the different phases available in batch job. Okay, so this is the entire batch job scope. Inside this you can use different components to configure your flow and to work on it, but batch job is having different scopes. We have three different scopes inside the batch job, which is, I will show you in the Mule documentation itself. See, batch job phases. If you can see, these are all the different phases: load and dispatch, process phase, and on complete phase. Only three phases are there. Load and dispatch phase will not be visible for us externally, but it is doing its internal job. It means once your flow is triggered, if you have any payload here, it will load that payload into the persistent queue, into memory persistent queue. It will load it and then dispatch those records to the batch job as an input. Okay, let's try to understand it. See, batch job component splits the valid input into records and prepares the records for the processing. This phase takes place within the batch job component. Okay, so it will just load the records into the persistent queue and it will send these records one by one to the batch job to start the execution of the records. Okay, then process phase. Mule components and connector operations within one or more batch step components in the batch job process records within the given batch job instance. Processing within a batch aggregator component also occurs in the process phase. Means, see here, this is the batch processing phase till here. The dotted line is there, and next to that dotted line it is on complete, which is on complete phase. You can just ignore for now. So inside this you will find batch step, right? So here process records is also there, batch step. So inside this processing phase you can have multiple batch steps. You can have any number of batch steps. Okay, inside these batch steps we are going to process our record. So once the load and dispatch phase load the records and dispatch it to the batch job, then batch step 1 will execute. It will take the processes, it will take those records, and we can use multiple processes here. Processes means multiple new another components. By using those components we can process on top of those records. Then aggregator is also there inside the batch step to aggregate the records. We will see that later in detail. So like that, any number of batch steps will be there. You can use any number of batch steps based on your requirement, and each batch step will contain processes and aggregator sections. So once all these batch steps are getting executed, then the last stage of last phase of batch job will get executed, which is on complete phase. And see, here we can see the process phase and on complete phase, but the load and dispatch phase we cannot see it visually here, but internally it will load and dispatch the records. Say for example, I can take one transform message. Here I can load 10 records. Not from the input, I'm just giving here itself. Okay. So let's say here I can say simply 1 to 10. Means it will take 10 numbers as a Java object. It will send it as an input to this batch job. Okay. Let me just rename this. Send 1 to 10 numbers. Okay. These details. So when I say this, it means it will load all the 1 to 10 records into the memory. Once I trigger this flow, it will say it will store this 1 to 10 numbers into the persistent queue. Then it will send all these records one by one to the batch job based on the block size. Here it is a block size is one another option available at batch job level. On batch job level, we have multiple configurations: max failed records, block size, and max concurrency. All these things we will discuss one by one in our upcoming discussions, examples of this particular batch processing. For now, don't worry about it. For now, the input is loaded in the load and dispatch phase. Inside the batch job, we have process phase and on complete phase. Just remember this, and let's try to understand with some example. So I'm just drag and drop the logger here in the batch step. I don't want to use multiple batch steps for now, so I'm just removing it. Okay, and the batch job block says also 100 by default. By default it is 100, and by default max failed records is 0. We will change this and we will play around with this later one by one. Okay, here what is the logger? I can say processing records. Wait, I'll just make it as output.json. Sorry, output as application/json. Now it will show you all the processes. I mean all the records which is processing inside the process job one by one. And then I will add one logger here in the on-complete phase. Here let's see what is the payload itself. Okay, let me just copy the same thing on complete phase. On complete result, I can say. Okay, you can give anything, but I'm just trying to show you what is things available here. Okay, and then yeah, maybe we can add one more logger here. That's okay. We can first see this how it will work. Okay, so inside this batch step, as I said, payload. What is the different payload available? Because we are sending numbers 1 to 10 as an input to this particular batch job. What is the information available here? Let's see. Let me just deploy this application till here. This is very basic example to understand the different information available inside the batch or outside the batch scope. And next time onwards, we will deploy this batch applications in debug mode and we will see discuss in detail. For now, let me just deploy it in normal mode, and let me just go to my Postman and make it ready for processing. It's batch testing and normally it's right one. So meanwhile it will get deployed. So and this is simple get method of my batch processing. I just named it as simple. That's it. Let me see if it is, yeah, it is deployed, right? So let me just clear the log and let's trigger the flow and see. Okay, here just ignore this response for now. Oh, okay, it throws an error. Okay, no problem. I know what I have done. I no need to add this. That's it. Because I changed it to JSON, I just didn't use the correct syntax. Okay, let me redeploy this application. It will redeploy. Okay, it is started, right? So let me just clear the log. Yeah, now I'm triggering it again. I'm just going to this. See here in the console. See, these are all the log messages which we are getting. And first thing is this is the instance. It is created instance. So this is the instance ID. You can say batch job instance ID. Whenever you run any batch, one unique instance ID will be getting created for you. So you need to make sure what is the job instance ID. You can just save it somewhere. We can read it via variables. That's not an issue. But just I want to show you some important information you need to understand from this is batch job instance ID. It will be getting created once you create any batch job. Then see starting a loading phase for the instance of this job. This is our job name which we have given the default job name. If you can change this rename, if you can rename it, then it will be easy for you. But for now, see batch processing demo batch job. What it has done, first it is created the first. This is the very first log message. So first it has created the job instance ID for this particular job. Then it started the load phase of instance and this particular instance ID. For this particular instance, it is created the load phase, starting the loading phase of this particular instance of this job. Job name, job instance ID, both it is showing. And then after some time, now we have only 10 records, right? So see for till now it is executed blocking thread, then it will be executing with another thread. I will also show you that as well, and try to understand the time difference. I'm just trying to show you the time difference of starting and finishing job, second and third line, right? So second line is 192 and third line is 49 seconds 199 milliseconds, means in 7 milliseconds, within 7 milliseconds it has loaded the records. So first phase which we have discussed is loading and dispatch phase, right? See here the queue, batch queue loader. This is the queue and this is another queue, batch queue. I mean the same queue. In this queue, as we said, it is a persistent queue. In this persistent queue itself, it is loaded the records. So we have 10 records so far. So it is starting the loading phase of the instance, and within 9 seconds or 7 milliseconds, sorry, not the second, 7 milliseconds, it has finished the loading phase of the same instance of batch job. And it will show you the information also. See, 10 records were loaded. We have said 1 to 10 is the numbers, right? So 10 records were loaded. So you will find all the information here. So what is the instance ID and when the loading phase started, when the loading phase finished. So by end of this finishing job, okay, let me show you. Yeah, by end of this finishing phase of this loading phase, then it has loaded 10 records. So all the 10 records were loaded. we are trying to process 10 records as an input. We have given 10 records as an input. It has loaded all the 10 records into the queue. Batch queue loader is loading that information into the queue. Then started execution of instance of this job. Started execution means it is a default batch engine. It will start at the execution of processing the records one by one. So then after that we will see our own logger message. See processing record 1, processing record 2, processing record 3, because we have configured here processing record as our what is that, our log message processing record, and we have printed the payload. Here why payload is coming as 1, 2, 3, because we are sending numbers as an input. So whenever you send numbers as an input, for first time it will take number 1 as a payload, then number 2 as a payload, then number 3 as a payload. So that is why it is printing, it is processing one by one all the records one by one. So first time it is taking like processing record number 1. Then at 3 seconds, milliseconds difference will be there if you can observe the time also. So it is processing record 1, then it is processing record 2. Means this is our payload. All the numbers we are the payloads which we have given, input we have given. So processing record 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Also you can observe one more thing. Inside this batch job, inside this batch step, all the information is processing sequentially. See, in the same order, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Inside this batch step, once the data is loaded, once the processing phase is started, then inside that the payload is processing one by one in sequential way. Okay, we can make it parallel also by using different batch steps or by using different block sizes and all, that we will see. But by default, inside the batch step, all the records are processing sequentially one by one. So it has processed all the 10 records now one by one. Then later on what happened? So default step batch step finished processing all records for the instance ID of this particular job. It will provide you all the information. See, step batch step finished. Here batch step means the batch step name it is there. We can rename this also, maybe batch step 1 and all. So by default the name is batch step. Later on we will change these names and we will see. So this batch step is finished. It is showing the information like inside this batch step all the records are processed. I am done with the batch step execution. That is what it is explaining us. So it is done with the batch step. So this batch step finished processing all records for this instance ID. This instance ID will be unique and it is same. Once while starting of this batch job, one instance ID will get created. The same instance ID will be propagating to end of the batch job itself, so that we can track easily with this batch instance ID what is happening inside that, if in case of any errors and all. Right. So the next information is like it has processed the batch step and successfully. Then see, after that default batch engine, what it is explaining us, it is starting the execution of on complete phase. It has load and dispatch the phase. We have seen it first loaded the record and starting the load phase, and it is showing like finished the loading phase. See, finished the loading phase. Then it has started the execution of the processing phase. Then it has informed us like finished the processing of all records. The batch step is executed successfully. Then later on it is coming to the starting the execution of the on complete phase. So this is how a batch job will work. So starting execution of the on complete phase for the same instance ID for this particular job. Okay, then in the on complete phase, it is very important for us to understand what the information available in the on complete phase. So it has done with the processing of batch step, then it come to the on complete phase. So in this on complete phase, what we have done, we have just put a logger and we are trying to get the payload. What is the payload available in this on complete phase? That we will see here in the console. So on the complete phase will be the one where a batch job batch job result object will be created for us. We will deploy this in debug mode and we will see in more detail. But at on complete phase, batch job result object will be created. What the information available in that batch job result object is like this one. So you can see all the information. It will be giving you this on complete information in on complete phase. You will not see the actual payload here. What is the input payload which we have given? that we will be not seeing here in the onComplete phase. We will be seeing some important information of batch job which it has been executed and all. See, onComplete phase execution, it is showing null. Loading phase exception, null. Sorry, it is exception. Any exceptions occurs in onComplete phase? No. So it is null because all of our records are processing successfully. So it is null. Loading phase exception is anything is there? Null because we have given valid input to the batch job. I will show you what are the different valid inputs it is accepting. That is also we will discuss later. So loading phase exception, null. onComplete exception, null. So loading phase in loading phase and in onComplete phase there will be there is no exceptions occurred. Then it will show you total records. How many total records we are giving as an input? We have given 10 records. And elapsed time, that you can ignore. It will be different from one to another. Then failed onComplete phase, false. It is if any error occurred in onComplete phase, no. It is executed successfully for us. So failed and onComplete phase is false. If any error is there, it will show you true. Then failed records, 0, because we have processed all the 10 records successfully. There is no errors as of now in this particular flow. So it is showing failed records, 0. And loaded records is 10 because we have given 10 records. All the 10 records were loaded successfully inside this batch queue. And failed on input phase, false. So there is no error occurred in the input phase. And successful records, 10. All the 10 records which we have given as an input to the batch job, it is executed successfully. So successful records is also 10. Then batch step results. This is also another important information. Batch step records inside the batch steps. If you have multiple batch steps, it will show you in which batch step any error occurred or any process records are not processed, like that. It will show you that information as well. So batch step results. This is recently added in the new runtime or new release. It is recently added. Earlier this information will be not there. So batch step results also there. We have only one batch steps. That is why it is showing that batch step name. Inside that batch step, how many failed records are there, how many successful records are there, how many records received by this batch step, and any exceptions are there inside this particular number one batch step. There is no. And then by end of this, it is showing input phase exception, anything is there? No. Processed records, I mean entirely for all the batch steps, how many records are processed successfully. It is showing processed records is 10. And failed on loading phase, no, it is false. Here also it is onComplete phase, false. Here failed on loading phase, also false. And finally it will be showing you the batch job instance ID. This is the same instance ID which it has created initially. Whenever it has started the batch job, it is created this batch instance ID. So this instance ID is also giving you as an output from the onComplete phase. So by using this onComplete phase output, by using this payload, you can process on the next steps, like if any failed records are there, what action you have to take. If anything, any batch step is failed, any exceptions occur, then how you are going to handle those exceptions. What are your next steps? That you can see accordingly by using this payload of this batch job result object. Right? So then after that, what happened? So after that, it shows like, see, finished execution of onComplete phase. It has done with the onComplete phase execution as well. It has finished for this particular job instance ID. For everything, it is showing the job instance ID for our tracking purpose. Then finished execution of the instance itself. Now the complete batch job itself is done. The execution of complete batch job instance itself is done now. The entire batch job. So finished the execution. Then finished the execution of this instance. And total records processed is 10. Successful records is 10. Failed records is 0. It will be showing this information also by end of the batch job. See, finished execution of instance also 0. So this is how your batch job will execute one by one in sequential manner. And this is all the important information we will be capturing here to process further. Right now, let's do a couple of changes here, and we will be getting one doubt, like by end after the batch job is executed, what is the payload available here? Whether we get the payload processing inside the batch job, or what is a different payload available? Let's see that as well. Okay, let me just drag and drop a transform message here after this batch job. Okay, and I will take a JSON payload and I'll just print the payload here. It will be coming as a response for us in the postman. Earlier it is not coming like this, right? So some garbage output is there. So now let's see what is the response available after the batch job. Okay, so I have taken it as a JSON payload. Let me save this and also let me change these batch names, like I can say batch, sorry, batch job clot. Just to differentiate you, I'm just changing this name. Okay, later on we will be using another naming conventions. So this is my job name. Then my step name, batch step 1 clot. So you can change these names as well. That is what I'm trying to show you. And here it will be same thing, and here also it will be same thing. These names we cannot change, and in complete, yeah, we have these loggers and all. So let's see what is the payload available after this batch job. So now this is deployed. Let me just clear the log and let me trigger this again. So now you will see the payload. So what is available here we will discuss. Before that, let's cross check the log messages. So it has created, let me just, and now see, this is created an instance ID for this job. Now the job name is batch job clot, which I have given. So you can rename this batch job also, and this is the instance ID. Let me show you. So see, earlier it has created one another instance ID. Now it is a somewhat different, right? This is same, this is same, this is same, and here it is different, right? So basically, whenever you started any execution of a batch job, it will create a unique batch job instance ID for you. And then it started the loading phase, finished the loading phase, started the execution of processing phase, and yeah, processing phase, it is batch job clot. 10 records were loaded, and one by one all the records it is processed sequentially, which we have already discussed. So I don't want to repeat it again. And here, yeah, it is finished all processing the records of all records, and the same instance ID is carry forward for everything. And the on complete phase also we have seen, we have discussed. And now see the batch step results. It will give you each batch steps one by one. Here batch step 1 clarity is giving, and this is the execution when this is the information about this first job, first step. Then we'll be adding a second step also later, we will see. And this information we have already seen. Now what you need to observe now is it has done with the execution. Now this is on complete result, and this is your response after the batch job. After the batch job is executed, here we have given the payload, right? So what payload available here? What is payload available in the on complete phase? You can just try to understand the difference between these two. Then it will be easy for you to understand little more better. Let me just make it in, yeah. See, this is on complete phase result. This is after the batch job. Okay, see, on complete execution is null, on complete execution exception is null, sorry, loading phase exception is null, loading phase exception is null. Fine, total records 10, total records 10, elapsed time 0, it will not show you the information. Failed on complete phase false, that is also available. And the loaded records is 10, so there it has loaded 10 records. Failed on input phase false, batch step results it is not showing anything, successful records it is not showing, and processing records also it is not showing. Failed on phase 3 and batch job instance ID is there. So what you understand by this? So inside the batch job, on complete phase will give you the information about how many records are processed, how many records are failed, how many records are successfully it is completed, and what are the what is the number of total records. But in after the batch job, it will not show you those information. It will show you only the loaded records information. See, it is showing loaded records. Loaded records are 10. That's it. It will not show you how many records are processed successfully and any failed records are there and what are the records processed by using each batch job, each batch step. It is not showing to you. Why? What is the reason why we are not getting these successful records, failed records after the batch job? See, and status is executing and the owner job name is this job name. This is information available, and here also record count you can see 10. So how many records are loaded inside the memory? Only that information is available by end of the batch job. Here we have loaded 10 records. That information only available after the batch job. What happened inside this batch job? It is not available here by end of the batch job. I mean outside of the batch job. Means there will be a separate thread. Once you trigger this flow, there will be one thread will be starting executing, and that thread will load these records into the memory, into the queue, and then there itself the thread will go out from here to here. It will skip the batch job and the thread execution will go from here to here. Inside the batch job there are separate set of threads, separate thread of I mean by default it is 16 threads or so in older versions. Now maybe it is actually depends on your CPU how many threads are there in the pool. So based on that the batch job it will take the another set of threads to start execution and to complete the execution inside the batch job. Your main thread will load the records into the memory, into that queue, into the persistent queue, and then the main thread will come out of the batch scope here. So that is why here you will see only loaded records information, not the processed records information. So if you want to know how many records are processed and what are the successful failed records and all this information, you will see in this on complete phase, not outside of the batch scope. So here you will see only loaded records information, how many records were loaded and any exceptions occurred or somehow. Okay, that information only available here. So I just wanted to show you that as well before we discuss any complex examples. Right, so yeah, that is the information available here. I'll record count how many records we processed, how many records loaded basically. And then yeah, and I want to show you one more thing here in this particular video. See here we have discussed it like these records were loaded into the queue, persistent queue. So where is that queue? Where the queue will be available? It will be available inside the Mule runtime because we are deploying this in our local only, right? In our local Anypoint Studio. So we in the Anypoint Studio itself for local it is coming with like embedded runtime, right? So in this runtime it will be created a queue. Inside that queue the information the records were loaded. You can see that as well. To be frank, I'll just try to show you. Where is my studio? This is the studio and the plugins. Inside that you will find the runtime. So this is the server runtime, and here you will see mule and .mule and your what is your my project name? It is batch processing demo is my project name now. So it will show you all the projects available in your workspace. So this is my project. So inside this project, see, you will have object store. Nothing is there. We have not used anything for this particular project. Okay, we can ignore this because yeah, internally, like the batch job also internally creating an object store, default object store, that we don't need to bother about that. But first you need to understand the queue store. Why it is showing empty? Okay, maybe it is executed already, so the execution is completed now, so it got removed it seems. Let me trigger it again. Okay, let me trigger and stop it, because once you stop now, then you will the queue will be visible for you. Or I'll do one thing. I'll just minimize this. Let's trigger it. Aha. Wait, then I'll maximize this and I'll put postman on top of this. I want to show you this queue is getting created. That's what. Yeah, within fraction of second it got done, I think. Okay, no problem. You can see this later because in our next examples we'll be focusing on these queues and all. But basically, you can see that queue store here. Inside this queue, the records were loaded. If you can stop this flow for some time and you can stop the execution, then it will show you that message. I mean the queue. Excuse me. So it will show you the queue information here, because in case of any failures, in case of any mule restarts, or in case of any application failures, if the batch step will get failed, because now in our case it is executed successfully, so the queue record, there is no use of that queue, it will not be visible after the execution. But in case if you have any errors or any processing errors or any mule server restarts, in that case it should process the information whichever loaded in the queue, right? So in such cases it will show you that records, I mean the queue here, it will show you the queue which has stored those records which are loaded in the loading phase. That we will see later. Maybe I'll show you the first I want to show you the path. Later on, while we are discussing about different scenarios, then we will come back here, we will see if the queue is available or not, and the values are available or not. Okay, so that's it for this video. In our next video we will be seeing different kind of inputs, and we will be playing around like different kind of batch jobs, block size, and we will be discussing in detail about max failed records, max concurrency, everything we will be discussing in our next video itself. We have multiple examples, multiple scenarios we are going to discuss in this particular batch processing series, so please don't miss them. Thanks for watching this video. Please share this video to others and please subscribe to our channel. And if you have any doubts, please ask us in our comment section. Right, I hope you understand this concept for now. So let's continue from next video itself, but next 2-3 videos are very important for you to understand this batch job execution in very detail, so don't miss them. Thank you.